My name is Iris Bennett, and I was 34 years old the morning I woke up to a silent house on Christmas Day. Not peaceful silence, but a hollow, echoing kind. The kind that lets you know something is wrong before your brain catches up. No coffee brewing, no holiday music, no laughter from my brother or teasing from my sister. Just cold floors, still air, and the sharp, metallic smell of leftover breakfast dishes no one bothered to wash. It was supposed to be our biggest Christmas yet. 4 cars, 17 people, and a snowy mountain lodge I'd spent months planning and paying for. Our annual family trip had grown from a simple getaway into a full production, and this year was mine to orchestrate. I'd booked the cabins, coordinated the drive schedules, tracked everyone's food allergies, and paid the $16,000 up front. Because that's who I was in the family, the reliable one, the one who made everything happen. I got out of bed still half asleep, calling out apologies into the hallway, thinking I'd overslept and made them wait. But no one answered. The bedrooms were empty, the bags were gone. Even the family dog's crate was missing. They were gone. All of them. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe they thought I was in one of the other cars. Maybe they forgot to wake me in the rush. But as I stared at my phone, no texts, no missed calls, not a single message, I knew. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was exclusion. It wasn't just the trip. It was the culmination of years of being the one who gave more, did more, asked for less, and was somehow still too much, too emotional, too controlling, too sensitive. And now, too inconvenient. They had gone without me, and they weren't coming back to get me. I stood in the middle of my kitchen, surrounded by blinking Christmas lights and the ghosts of every gathering I'd ever held for them, every gift I'd wrapped, every favor I'd done without thanks. And I realized something. I wasn't going to cry this time. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to chase people who had made a plan, an actual plan to leave me behind. Because what they didn't realize was, I'd been holding this family together for years. And now, for the first time, I was about to see what happened when I stopped. What followed wasn't revenge. It was clarity. And it started the moment I picked up my phone, opened the resort website, and clicked Cancel Reservation. I sat at the kitchen table in the same chair I'd claimed for years, through birthdays, graduations, and dozens of family dinners, and let the silence swallow me. The room looked exactly as it should have on Christmas morning. Twinkling lights around the window frame, a half-eaten cinnamon roll on a festive paper plate, 2 mugs in the sink still stained with coffee. It was perfect, except for the part where I'd been erased. There was no note, no message, no mistake, only absence. I glanced at the fridge. My color-coded itinerary still hung there. Departure, 7 a.m. sharp, 4 vehicles. Everyone knew their assignments. I'd planned the whole thing with the precision of a wedding coordinator. But it didn't matter, because while I was checking for road conditions and confirming dinner reservations, they were quietly planning how to leave me behind. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they thought I was in Laura's car. Maybe Ben assumed I rode with Mom and Dad. But that fell apart the moment I remembered the family group chat. The one I hadn't seen a single message from in 3 days. I searched my phone again. No new messages, nothing. And then I remembered. There had been one. A new group I couldn't access. A chat Ben mentioned offhandedly last week. We sent that in the Christmas thread, then immediately changed the subject when I asked which one. I'd brushed it off at the time, assuming it was just me being paranoid again. Maybe I was being left out of a dumb meme chain or a side convo about stocking stuffers. Turns out it wasn't paranoia. It was prophecy. The last time I'd truly felt part of the family was last Christmas in Lake Arrowhead. That was before I asked Cousin Drew to stop making jokes about me dying alone with her spreadsheets. Before I told Mom, quietly but firmly, that it hurt when she ignored my promotion to lead marketing strategist. But sent flowers to Laura's boyfriend for his new dental office. That was the last time they hugged me without looking over my shoulder for someone more interesting. Growing up, the Bennett family was big in the loud way. Spaghetti dinners with 15 people, board game nights that ended in yelling, and spontaneous driveway barbecues, even in the middle of February. We were that family. The one with matching shirts on 4th of July. The one where you always had to make room for just one more at the table. And I played my role perfectly. I was the one who made the shirts, the one who picked up the cake, the one who remembered to pack batteries for the baby toys and brought extra lawn chairs just in case. Reliable Iris, organized Iris, never the star of the show, but always the one who made sure the spotlight worked. Lara was the golden girl, always first, always praised. She had a warm laugh and a habit of turning every minor inconvenience into a hilarious story that made people love her more. Ben was the baby, effortlessly charming, always forgiven. When he crashed Dad's car senior year, everyone laughed about it within the week. When I got a parking ticket, "Iris, you're usually so careful." It's a strange thing, being dependable. It sounds like a compliment, but really, it's just another way to say, you'll put up with anything. And I had, for years, because I loved them. And love, at least the way I was raised to believe in it, meant staying useful, staying agreeable, staying quiet. Until today. I stood up slowly and walked to the hallway, pausing at the closet door. My coat was still there. So were my snow boots, the ones I bought for the trip. No one had thought to move them. No one had asked where I was. I opened the front door and stepped outside. The December air hit hard, dry and cold, with just a trace of chimney smoke from a neighbor's house. The driveway was bare. No tire marks, no footprints. Just my car, parked at the edge like an afterthought. 4 cars had left this house without me. 17 people. All of them had shared a chat, a plan, a morning. Without me. I stood there for a while, arms wrapped tight around myself, eyes fixed on the horizon like they might turn back, like someone might realize. Like this was just a joke that had gone too far. But the sun was already high, and the street was empty. No one was coming back. I went inside, shut the door quietly behind me, and took a long breath. This wasn't grief. Not yet. This was inventory. I walked through the rooms slowly. Lara's old bedroom, now used as a guest space. Ben's room, still a mess of college memorabilia and energy drink cans. The main bath, where Dad always left his shaving kit. And Mom's scented candles lined the tub. Their suitcases were gone. Toiletry bags missing. Wrapping paper scraps still on the floor from last night's final gifts. It had all happened while I slept. And the part that kept clawing at me was this. They knew I was here. They counted on it. And they left anyway. The thing about betrayal is, it doesn't show up all at once. It arrives in small, polite moments you're trained to ignore. Like when my sister Lara asked if I could just book the trip again this year, because everyone agreed I was the best at logistics. Like when Ben said he didn't know how the group chat settings worked, so maybe I should check with Mom. Like when Mom borrowed my credit card just in case the resort needed an alternate form of payment, even though the entire reservation was already under my name. They weren't lying, not technically. They were omitting. And I was too conditioned to notice. It had started weeks ago, the quiet slipping away. At our early December family dinner, I had printed out the full itinerary, color-coded by car, with playlists curated for each group. I remember the way people smiled at me politely, distracted. No one made eye contact. When I asked if we should finalize the food rotation, Aunt Melody suddenly remembered she had a call to take. Lara complimented the napkins. It was like watching a play where the actors forgot their lines the moment I walked on stage. I shrugged it off. I always did. Because what was I going to say? Hey, does anyone else feel like you're pretending I'm not here while using me as your unpaid travel coordinator? That's not something you ask if you want to be invited to next year's trip. The night before departure, I was the last one up. As always, wrapping the last gifts, labeling medicine bags for the kids, loading the coolers. I'd planned to sleep early, but ended up scrolling through Pinterest for fun road games for the younger cousins. That was who I was. Even when they overlooked me, I still showed up. I set my alarm for 5:30 a.m. I never heard it go off. At 9:15, the sunlight pierced my blinds like a cruel joke. The kind of sunlight that says, "You're already too late." The house was still. Everything about it, too clean, too settled, screamed finality, like they hadn't just left in a rush. They'd left prepared. I called my mother first. She answered cheerfully, music blaring in the background, her voice bright with something close to relief. Iris, good morning, sweetheart. Did you just wake up? I stared at the blinking lights on the Christmas tree. You left without me. A pause. No, wait, aren't you with Lara or in Ben's car? No, Mom, I'm here. Alone. Another pause, longer. I heard muffled voices. Someone covered the phone. When she returned, her tone had shifted. Polite concern, the kind you use with strangers in a grocery store. Oh, honey, it must have been a miscommunication. We thought you were in Lara's group. Everything was so hectic this morning. No one knocked on my door, I said. No one texted. No one asked where I was. It was chaotic, Iris. You know how mornings like this go. I could picture her face, that tight smile, that practiced deflection. I guess we just assumed, she said. 17 people, 4 vehicles, and not one person had looked for me, not even once. She ended the call quickly. Reception's spotty in the mountains. I'll call you when we get there. She didn't. But someone else did. Amanda, my cousin, texted me hours later with a photo from the road. Group selfie, laughter, Lara flashing peace signs, Ben holding a coffee cup and grinning wide. No empty seat, no question, no guilt. Caption, best Christmas trip ever. And below it, another message. Oops. That wasn't meant for you. Ignore it. I didn't reply. My hands were too cold. Later that afternoon, I remembered something. Our shared cloud drive. The one we used for family photos and backup documents. A few months ago, I'd helped set it up for Lara, who kept losing her phone data. She never unchecked the messages box when syncing. I opened it, scanned her latest backup folder, and there it was. A screenshot. A group text I wasn't in. Highlighted message from Ben. He's really not here. OMG, our plan worked. Lara replied, Told you. Mom kept asking if we should wait. I said she's probably still asleep. Now we can actually relax. He's not here, not she, not Iris. He. That's what broke me. Not just the exclusion, not just the manipulation, but the fact that they didn't even use my name, not even when erasing me. I read the thread over and over. Each line dug deeper. Let her think it was a mix-up. She'll either fly out or pretend it didn't hurt. Classic Iris. Always the good soldier. I closed the laptop and stared at the wall. They hadn't forgotten me. They had removed me. Intentionally, systematically, with relief. And the worst part? I'd helped them do it. I thought I was ready for the truth. After everything I'd already seen, the silence, the empty house, the group photo without me, I thought there wasn't much left that could surprise me. But betrayal has layers. And I hadn't even reached the center yet. That night, long after the sun had set and the house had sunk into a kind of hollow stillness, I opened my laptop and pulled up the family's shared cloud drive. It was something I'd set up myself 2 years ago, mostly for photos, trip itineraries, and birthday reminders. But I'd also shown Lara how to enable automatic backups for her phone. She never changed the settings, never unchecked messages. I clicked into her folder, then into a backup file, time-stamped a few days earlier. My chest tightened as I opened it. The first conversation that appeared was between her and Mom. Lara had asked plainly, "Do we really have to include Iris this year?" Mom's reply came slower. She did all the planning. The reservations are under her name. Then Lara again. "That doesn't mean she has to come. She'll never say anything if we just go." Mom hesitated. I could almost hear the pause behind her message. "That sounds unfair." But Lara pushed. "It's overdue. Last Christmas, she made everything heavy. I want this one to feel light." I closed my eyes for a moment, but it didn't stop the words from echoing. The next thread was with Ben. He'd written, "So what's the plan?" Lara answered, "We leave early. Don't wake her. She sleeps like a brick." Ben, "What if she calls?" Lara, "We say we thought she was in another car. Mom will cover it." Ben just replied, "Brutal, but effective. And it wasn't just them. Aunts, uncles, cousins, they were all there, chiming in at various points with likes, emojis, thumbs ups. One or two expressed discomfort. Aunt Meg wrote, "I'm not sure about this, feels off." But no one stopped it. There was even a vote. Not a formal poll, but a string of replies under the question, "Is everyone good with not telling Iris?" 12 yes, 3 no, 2 abstained. That was it. That was all it took to exile me from my own family. Even Mom gave in eventually. She'd started out reluctant, typing, "She is family. She did pay for everything." But Lara pushed again. "She makes every trip tense. Every meal is a landmine. It's exhausting." And Mom finally replied, "Okay, if you're sure, I'll go along." There it was, my mother, signing off on my erasure like it was a minor logistical decision. But the part that broke me wasn't the vote. It wasn't the plan. It was how they spoke about me when they thought I couldn't see it. She always needs to be in control. She gets weird about details. She doesn't know how to let go. She's a buzzkill. And from Lara, cold as glass. She's not the fun sibling. She's the one who brings printed binders. I didn't cry. Not then. I just sat there, staring at the screen, realizing how small I'd become in their eyes. Not a sister, not a daughter, just a complication. I started replaying old memories under a new light. The time I lent Dad $8,000 to cover a gap in the mortgage. He said he'd pay me back after the tax return. He never did. The summer I worked 2 jobs to help Ben pay off his tuition gap. I told him it was a gift. He didn't even say thank you. The year Lara's car died 2 weeks before her new job started, and I covered the repairs. She posted a photo of it on Facebook, thanking everyone who helped without mentioning my name. They didn't forget those things. They just expected them. From me, I was their safety net, their background support, their built-in assistant. And when I'd finally asked for space, just one moment last Christmas, when I told Cousin Mike to stop joking about me being single, suddenly I was too much. I called Andrea, one of the few cousins I trusted, the only one I hadn't seen in the messages. She picked up immediately. "Iris," she said, her voice low, careful. I didn't waste time. "Did you know?" A long pause. "I did," she admitted. "Not all of it, but enough to feel sick about it." "Why didn't you say something?" Her answer came with a sigh. "Because they would have shut me out too. I'm sorry. I really am." That was the thing about family. Silence is easier than honesty, and survival often looks like complicity. I thanked her quietly and hung up. Then I sat alone in the stillness, surrounded by the quiet decorations of a holiday I wasn't invited to. I'd spent years believing that if I just did more, worked harder, gave more, stayed agreeable, they'd finally see me. But they had seen me. They just didn't care. And that was the moment everything inside me shifted. By the time the sun set on Christmas Day, I had stopped shaking. Not because I was over it, no. I would carry the bruises from this day for a long time. But I wasn't spinning anymore. The grief had begun to crystallize into something far more solid, something with edges, something I could use. The kind of silence I sat in wasn't the kind that begged for someone to fill it. It was the kind that prepared for movement. I turned on the kettle, made a cup of black tea, and sat at the kitchen table where I'd once planned meals and games for people who no longer saw me as anything but a burden. The lights on the tree blinked in rhythm with the cursor on my laptop screen. I opened the browser and logged into my Pinecrest Lodge account. There it was. 6 cabins, 17 guests, total amount $16,032, paid in full. By me. I didn't hesitate. I clicked Cancel Reservation. A prompt appeared. This reservation is non-refundable. For exceptions, please call. I called. A woman named Melanie answered, her voice warm in that way that almost made me cry. I didn't explain everything, just enough. That I was the primary guest. That the trip was no longer going forward. That the rest of the party would still arrive, but without me. There was a pause. I could hear the understanding in the silence between us. She said she'd speak with her manager, and when she returned, she told me, softly, clearly, that they'd grant a full refund as an exception. It would post back to my card in 5 business days. I thanked her, not just for the refund, but for treating me like a person. Then I ended the call and stared at the confirmation email, letting the words, "reservation canceled," sink in. I had always been the one who made things happen. This time was no different, except this time I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it to take back what was mine. That was step 1. Step 2 began with a deep breath and a new tab in my browser. For years, I'd kept a folder labeled Someday Trips. Inside were bookmarked flights to Iceland, Nova Scotia, and quiet mountain towns no one in my family had ever wanted to visit. Every time I'd mention those places, someone rolled their eyes or made a joke about how cold or boring they sounded. So I had always shelved the idea, compromised, gone along. But I wasn't compromising anymore. I clicked through the links. The price for a next-day flight to Reykjavik wasn't cheap, but it was far less than what I had just canceled. I booked it without fanfare. No text to anyone. No shared itinerary. Just me. A suitcase. A destination that didn't require me to shrink. I moved quietly through the house after that. Not like someone cleaning up. More like someone leaving a place they finally saw clearly for what it was. I emptied drawers that had never truly belonged to me. I packed only what I needed. Layers, camera, travel charger, my passport. I made a mental list of everything I no longer wanted to carry. Guilt, obligation, the idea that I had to earn my space in a house I owned. Then I opened a folder of shared digital accounts and started logging out. I removed my credit card from every family streaming subscription. Deleted my saved payment info from grocery delivery apps Mom often used under my name. Canceled my automatic grocery deliveries to the house, which I'd been paying for as a holiday gift every year since Grandma passed. Then I called Frank.
Frank was a local locksmith who charged double on holidays, and I didn't care. He arrived in a beat-up van just after noon, holding a coffee in one hand and a clipboard in the other. He didn't ask many questions, just got to work replacing every lock on every door, front, back, side, garage. He paused once halfway through and looked at me with the expression of a man who'd seen too much of this kind of thing. "Family issues?" he asked, not unkindly. I nodded. He didn't push, just said, "Well, boundaries are good. Doors are for more than coming in." When he left, I tipped him generously and kept one key for myself. The others I sealed in an envelope along with the letter I had started drafting in my head since the moment I read Lara's messages. I sat down at my desk and wrote it carefully, not with anger, but with clarity. I listed what I knew, who had said what, when, and how. I made it clear that I wasn't guessing, that this wasn't a misunderstanding, that I wasn't interested in confrontation, only in change. I reminded them that the house belonged to me, that I'd allowed them to live in it rent-free for years out of loyalty, not obligation, that as of February 1st they would either pay market rent, outlined clearly in a second page, or vacate. The tone was firm but not cruel. I wasn't writing to punish. I was writing to end the story they'd been telling about me for years, that I was too sensitive, too controlling, too easy to ignore. This was the end of that version of me. I printed the letter, folded it carefully, and placed it in the garage on top of the labelled boxes I'd had a moving service stack there earlier that morning. Ben's speakers, Lara's salon-grade hair tools, Dad's spare set of golf clubs, everything they'd left in my house as if it belonged to them by default. At the last moment, I tucked the keys inside, then I locked the garage from the outside and placed the spare key under the loose brick by the back fence. Exactly where Mum had always kept it. They'd know where to look. I wanted them to. That evening, I scheduled an email to go out at 6 p.m. the next day, just after check-in time at the lodge. It was brief, just one line. "I know what you did, I'm not coming. The reservation is cancelled, refund processed. Merry Christmas." No anger, no signature, no further explanation. Then I closed my laptop, zipped my suitcase, and stood in the doorway of my home. Not their home. Mine. And for the first time, it felt that way. They returned earlier than I expected. The security app on my phone lit up around 2:45 p.m. on December 27th. One car, then another. A third. The fourth came dragging behind, sputtering into the driveway like it had been pushed through disappointment. The camera feed flickered as the family poured out in clusters. Fewer smiles than usual. More silence. The air around them looked brittle. Tight. I didn't watch for long. Just enough. Each tried the door. The main key didn't work. Then the side entrance. The garage. When none of those opened, Lara walked straight to the backyard planter and pulled up the loose brick. The spare was still there. I hadn't moved it. I wanted them to find it. Like a final breadcrumb in a trail they hadn't realized they were following. They opened the garage. The camera inside caught them stepping in, stopping, staring. Their belongings were stacked against the wall, boxed and labelled. Everything from Lara's curated makeup drawers to Ben's tangled gaming cables. On top of the tallest box sat a thick white envelope. I watched until Mum's hands lifted it, and she started reading. Then I turned off the app and powered down my phone. I didn't want to witness the unravelling, not live. I just wanted them to sit with it. When I pulled into the driveway a week later, January 3rd, every car was there. As if nothing had changed, as if they hadn't been dismantled in my absence. The house was quiet from the outside, but I could feel the tension before I even stepped through the door, like walking into a courtroom where the verdict had already been written, but no one had said it aloud. They were in the living room. Of course they were. All of them. Sitting stiffly, hands folded, faces composed but not relaxed, like people waiting for a storm that had been delayed. I closed the door behind me. I didn't speak, just took off my coat, set down my bag, and stood across from them with the kind of posture I used to reserve for job interviews. Mum was the first to stand. She moved toward me slowly, her eyes softer than I expected. Her voice was low, like she didn't want to wake something in me. We need to talk about what you did. Not, how are you? Not, can we talk about what happened? No. Just straight into accusation, reframed, of course, as concern. I didn't move. My hands stayed at my sides. My voice didn't waver. No, I said. We need to talk about what you've all done for years. Dad shifted behind her, uncomfortable but silent. Lara rolled her eyes and leaned back, arms crossed. Ben looked at the floor like it might open up and give him an exit. No one responded right away. Then Lara spoke, sharp and exasperated, as if we'd been through all this before and she was already tired of the rerun. So we left without you. It was a bad call, but changing the locks, cancelling the trip, kicking everyone out? Come on, Iris, that was nuclear. I turned to face her fully. No, Lara. What you all did was nuclear. What I did was reclaim the fallout. She scoffed, but didn't say more. Ben cleared his throat softly. We thought you were in another car. That's what Mum told us. I looked at him, and this time I let the full weight of what I knew rest on my face. Ben, I read the messages, I saw the vote, I saw what you said, don't lie to me. He flinched, not dramatically, just a small shift in his seat. His gaze dropped again. I didn't vote, he murmured. I stayed out of it. I nodded. That's true, but you didn't stop it either. That landed harder than anything I could have shouted. For a moment the room felt very still. Mum sat back down slowly, her hands twisted in her lap. I didn't want it to go that far, she said almost in a whisper. Lara said you were making everyone anxious. That last Christmas had been difficult. I asked not to be mocked, I said. That was my crime, apparently. She winced. I didn't know how much it hurt you, she said. You didn't ask, I replied. None of you ever asked. My voice didn't rise. If anything, it got quieter. This wasn't about a trip. This was about every single time I carried this family while being told I was too much. Every time I paid for things and didn't even get a thank you. Every time I planned holidays, no one appreciated until they didn't happen. They didn't argue. I took a slow breath and continued. You chose to leave me out. You organised around my absence, and I let you. I let it happen for years in smaller ways, hoping it would change. I stepped forward then, just enough to make them feel the shift. But now it has. I laid out the terms again, not for debate, but for clarity. The house was mine. They were free to stay until February, but after that, rent would be expected. Market rate, no exceptions, no family discount. All outstanding debts, expenses I'd covered over the years, loans made with trust, were to be acknowledged and repaid. We could put it in writing. I already had. They could choose to accept those terms and remain in some kind of relationship with me, or they could walk away. Either was fine, because for the first time, I wasn't offering myself as a buffer. I wasn't interested in being manageable. The room stayed quiet for a long time after that. Lara left first. She grabbed her bag and walked out without saying a word. Ben stayed longer. He asked if we could talk one-on-one sometime. I said maybe, not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I needed him to earn access, not assume it. Dad nodded stiffly and followed my mother to the hallway. She turned back once and looked at me with something in her eyes I hadn't seen in years, maybe guilt, maybe regret, maybe just recognition. I didn't look away. When the door shut behind them, I stood in the silence for several minutes, letting the stillness settle like dust after demolition. Then I picked up my bag, climbed the stairs, and unpacked slowly. The house didn't feel cold. It felt clean. And that, I realised, was the difference. When the last car pulled out of the driveway in mid-January, I didn't celebrate. I just stood at the window, watching the taillights fade into the grey winter morning and let the quiet wrap around me. Not the hollow kind that followed abandonment. This was different. This was a quiet that belonged to me. Earned, not given. The house didn't feel empty. It felt spacious. I didn't rush to redecorate. I didn't start tearing things down or repainting the walls. That wasn't what this was about. I moved slowly, intentionally, starting with things no one else would notice, the old pantry items I never used but kept out of obligation. The hallway closet filled with coats that weren't mine. The junk drawer in the kitchen full of other people's keys and receipts and leftover charger cords. Clearing those things out wasn't just about space. It was about memory, about weight, about what I'd been holding for far too long. I donated what I could, sold what had value, boxed up the rest and left it in the garage, clearly labelled, in case someone came asking, but no one did. The silence stretched into February, and I let it. I saw Dr. Hall every Tuesday afternoon. She didn't try to fix me. She didn't offer mantras or silver linings. She just listened, reflected, and asked the kind of questions that made my stomach twist in the best way. One day, after I'd described everything, what they'd done, what I'd done in return, she sat back, crossed her legs, and said gently, "What you did wasn't cruel, Iris. It was corrective." That word stayed with me. Corrective. Not vindictive, not vengeful, not impulsive, corrective, like a course shift, like putting something back where it belonged. In March, I rented one of the spare rooms to a graduate student named Jenna. She was studying environmental policy, worked nights at a community lab, and kept to herself. She paid rent on time, washed her dishes, watered the plants when I travelled. She never touched the thermostat without asking, and when she used the living room, she left it as she found it. It was the first time I'd lived with someone who didn't assume the space was theirs to dominate, and it was peaceful. I started a new routine, a quiet walk in the mornings, just before work, slow weekends with no obligations. I joined a photography group that met every second Saturday for coffee and city walks. No one knew anything about my family. No one asked. We just focused on light, texture, shadow. One day, I found myself capturing the corner of a street where light hit the brick just right, and I realised something. I hadn't thought about them in hours. Maybe even a full day. That was progress. In April, I took a weekend trip to New Mexico. Just me, a rented car, and a map marked in pencil. I stayed at a roadside inn, drank strong black coffee from a thermos I bought at a thrift store, and spent hours sketching desert rocks I had no words for. I left my phone on airplane mode for most of the trip. Not because I was avoiding anything, but because I wasn't waiting anymore. Ben reached out in May. A real message this time. No excuses, no deflections. He said he'd been thinking, that he hadn't realised how much space I'd been holding for everyone until I stepped out of it, that he missed having a sister who answered when he called, but understood why she didn't. We met for lunch, neutral ground, a small sandwich shop with sun-faded menus and chipped mugs. He apologised, not dramatically, just honestly. I didn't vote against you, he said, but I didn't speak up either. I didn't want to lose what I had with everyone else. I looked at him and said what I'd needed someone to say to me for years. I get it, but silence is a choice too. He nodded. I know. We didn't solve everything that day, but it was the beginning of something quieter, something more real. He started dropping by once a month. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we didn't. But he never assumed I'd cook. He never left dishes in the sink. In July, Mum sent a card, just a simple note. No flowers, no phone call. Inside, she'd written, I've been doing some reading about roles in families. I think I need to start over. If you're ever open to it, I'd like to try again. There was no manipulation in it, just effort. We met for coffee in late August. She didn't cry, she didn't defend herself, she just listened. And when she asked about Christmas this year, I paused before answering. I'm not ready for all of us, I said, but I'm open to something small, something new. She nodded. Whatever you're comfortable with. That was new too. Lara never contacted me. I stopped waiting for her to. There was nothing left to salvage there, and that too was a kind of peace. By November, I'd turned the old guest room into an art space. I painted the walls a warm grey, hung 2 shelves for plants, and strung soft lighting across the window. I framed some of my favourite photos, not of people but of places, stillness, texture, space. That Christmas I hosted a dinner, just 6 people, Ben, Mom, Jenna, 2 friends from the photo group, and a neighbour I barely knew who brought wine and the most incredible sourdough I'd ever tasted. We didn't exchange expensive gifts, just small things, homemade jam, a poetry book, a candle someone poured themselves. We cooked together, drank slowly, and listened to music without words. It snowed gently all evening. We let it fall without talking about it. After dessert, Mum handed me a small envelope. Inside was a photo I'd never seen before. Me, maybe 7 years old, bundled in a coat too big for me, sitting on the back porch with Grandma. We were both laughing, mid-motion, like the photo had caught a secret that didn't belong to anyone else. She kept it in her jewellery box, Mum said. I found it after she passed. I stared at the image for a long time, not because I missed that version of myself, but because I finally felt like I'd returned to her. That night, as I stood at the sink rinsing mugs and listening to the quiet hum of the heater, I realised the most surprising truth of all. I hadn't lost my family that Christmas. I'd just stopped chasing the version of it that kept me small, and in that space I'd made room for something else, something better, not louder, not fuller, but real and mine.